Once there was a noblewoman called Lady Mary, who was the wonder of the neighbourhood. For not only was she beautiful, but she could outride, outshoot, and outhunt any of her brothers, her 7 strong brothers. And so it was not terribly surprising they wanted to marry her off as soon as possible. But she declared no.
Oh, I'm not doing anything in a hurry.
And she said, indeed, that she would not marry anybody who could not.
Outrun, outhunt, and outshoot me.
And no one could. Many of the local squires tried, for she was beautiful and had a wealthy portion of her own. And although once in a way one could shoot better than her, or ride faster than her, or even hunt more than her, none could do them all. And so it was, she felt herself quite safe. That is, until Mr. Renard came by with his wealth and his charm.
Oh, thank you.
And his fascinating whiskers. He was, in Lady Mary's words,
quite a charmer.
And what was more, he could outride, outshoot, and outhunt her. And so it was, perhaps before she meant to, that Lady Mary found upon her finger a curious ring made with 5 rubies, for she was engaged, and all her brothers were delighted.
That was quick.
And as often, Lady Mary found herself having doubts before her wedding day. She suddenly thought,
what exactly do I know about this man?
In fact, almost nothing. She did not even know.
Where does he go in the evening?
For he would ride away and forbid anyone to follow him. And so she decided
to follow him.
And as she decided, she read in the sky words which seemed to be written in clouds.
Be bold. Well, I am bold.
And so she determined she would follow him at the next opportunity. But her wedding was close at hand. The brothers saw to that. And she did not find the time until the very evening before her wedding day. On that evening, she had a free hour or more, and she went and saddled up her horse and rode after Mr. Renard as he rode out, following him closely through the wood. But you know, it was very strange.
I know this wood. I've always known this wood from a child, but this is a bit I've never seen before.
And what was even stranger?
Well, it doesn't seem to be either afternoon or evening. It seems to be some sort of endless twilight just before.
And what was strangest of all was Mr. Renard.
It seems to be becoming some sort of shadow. I can hardly make him out in this strange light.
How long this went, Mary could never say. But they came at last to a great gate, and Mr. Renard went in a shadow. Lady Mary came up to the gate and read upon it,
Be bold. Well, I am bold.
And so she tied up her horse and went in. And inside, lit by a beautiful light, as if it were a summer afternoon, there was a great garden with a lawn stretching out before her, and a garden full of
temples and canals and labyrinths and trellises and all sorts of manner of things.
And a mile or more away, a great house. Well, Lady Mary went to the great house and climbed up the stairs, and over the door she read,
Be bold, but not too bold. Oh, I am bold.
And she opened the door and went in. And she discovered as she went from room to room that they were all furnished.
Oh, Lord, in gilding and tapestries and tassels, I mean, plush on earth.
She had never seen the like. But 2 strange things struck her about that house. The first was
nobody here.
no servants. And the second,
no kitchen. How does the man eat?
At last she came back to the main staircase and went up it and went in the first room, and there was the master bedroom. And if she thought downstairs was plush, this was like nothing she'd ever seen before. There was gilding, there was ornate, there was filigree.
Oh, there's literally miles of red velvet drape.
And a bed of noble proportions. She picked up a vase and looked at it.
Oh, Lord, look at the gildings come off in my hand. I hope you won't mind or notice.
And put it back. And then she went to all the other rooms, which, strange to say, were Spartan and bare. That is until she came to the final room, along the great corridor. That has 2 doors, and next to it a great chest. Now Lady Mary looked at the chest, and she suddenly realised...
Oh, how macabre! It's in the shape of a coffin.
And she opened it. And inside she saw bones.
Hundreds of them.
But she couldn't tell what creature they were.
Ooh.
And then she looked at the door, and over it she read...
Be bold, but not too bold, lest your heart grow cold.
And she thought to herself,
Oh, my blood runs pretty hot.
and opened the door. And there she found the kitchen. And her heart did grow cold. For there was the hob, there was the saucepans, and there was row upon row of murdered women, dressed as brides, their throats slit, hung as if they were pork.
What a bounder!
And then Lady Mary looked in horror at their hands, and each of them had 2 rings. One, the facsimile of her engagement ring, and the other, a wedding ring, made of gold, red as blood.
You must get an job lot.
And all of a sudden, the house was full of a dreadful sound. A door being slammed. And Lady Mary hid the only place she could, behind the chest, as Mr. Renard came in. But he was not alone, for over his back he held yet another murdered woman, who seemed quite dead, for she was bleeding from her neck. But it was not so, for as Renard came by the chest, the woman put out her hand and held onto it, and Renard, feeling that, turned round and said, "No, you're not quite dead yet, my dear. Here, have this!" And chopped off her hand, the hand with the wedding ring and engagement ring, and swept into the kitchen, closing and locking the door.
Poor girl!
But Lady Mary picked up the hand and fled. Down the corridor, down the stairs, across the garden, out to the forest. Although she could never quite remember how she got home. All she ever clearly remembered was waking up the next day. And she thought,
God, what a horrible
and
dream.
then she felt a weight on her chest and she looked down.
But that was no dream.
And then she heard a sound, an awful sound. The sound of wedding bells. And she dressed as the bride and put 1 or 2 things with her and hurried off down to the chapel where all her brothers and Renard were waiting for her. And she came up to them and said,
Before we go any further, I think you ought to hear about a dream I had
"What
last night.
folly is this? Let us be jolly and dismiss night thoughts," said Renard. The Lady Mary said,
Oh no, I do think it's rather important. It was a very interesting dream. Let me tell you about it. Oh, I followed Mr. Renard through the forest until I came to a very big garden. And then I went through the garden and came to a very big house. And then I went through the rooms and I found a very big kitten.
"Oh, what folly is this to remember the night shades? Let us be merry and jolly now and dismiss with the sunrise."
Oh no, I think I'll finish, sir. And when I opened the door to the kitchen, what did I see there but a lot of brides with their throats cut and 2 rings on their fingers, a wedding ring like the one he's got in his hand and an engagement ring like mine.
"But this is just folly, anxiety before your wedding day, my dear. Many brides have such thoughts. Let us be mad and merry and forget these nightly fancies."
Well, in that case, what's this?
And she held up the hand so that all could see the 2 rings and said,
Look, they match.
and they looked at the rings on the hand, and the rings in Mary's hand, and the ring that Renard even now held. And there was an incessant breath, a tight sigh, intake of breath went through the chapel. And everybody was silent. Renard was still, playing with his whiskers, as if he thought he could charm it out. Only Lady Mary. She drew out from her dresses
My blunderbuss and blew the blighter's brains out. Bang!
and it was said from that day, Lady Mary refused ever after to marry.
No ties, no commitments. You never know where they've been.
And so it was. She carried on, out shooting, out hunting, and out riding all her brothers. In the end, she outlived them as well.